Hi, welcome to our video presentation of the Raspberry Pi. So the main question is, what is Raspberry Pi? It is a small credit card sized computer that you can use by plugging onto a monitor or TV and using standard keyboard and mouse inputs. So here are some of the applications of Raspberry Pi, when to use and how you can use them in your projects or any other IoT device that you're working on. The most obvious way to use the Raspberry Pi is to replace a desktop computer. So to do this, you will need an HDMI cable, a suitable display like a TV or a monitor, and keyboard and mouse for input. This is a good way to use the Raspberry Pi because it is less expensive than the average computer. However, it can perform the same task with an average computer. You can also use it for powering robots and controlling them, because you can execute any program inside the Raspberry Pi with joysticks or any other input devices for controlling the movement. Just like any other computer, the Raspberry Pi can be used to load web pages over the internet or within local network. It works well as a web server because it uses very low power and is less prone to overheating, therefore it can be left on 24/7. This might be ideal for small businesses or startups because there is no need to pay for monthly hosting fee. Instead, you can just use the Raspberry Pi to load your web pages. Another use of the Raspberry Pi is to use it as a home theater. So it is an alternative for Apple TV, Roku Box, or Fire Stick. You can get FreeOS to turn your Pi computer into a set-top box for streaming movies. It is cheap and is fast enough with a good display. You can also use your Raspberry Pi as a Wi-Fi extender. So the Wi-Fi extender sits between your wireless router and the location that you want to improve the wireless coverage. It works by taking the existing Wi-Fi signals from your router and rebroadcasting them on a different channel. Why would you use Raspberry Pi instead of the Wi-Fi extender? Because again, it costs less and also it is multi-purpose. You can use it for extending your Wi-Fi and for other things as well. If you want to monitor your house or any other environment, you can build your own inexpensive wireless security camera using the Raspberry Pi. You will also need the Raspberry Pi camera. You can also use your Raspberry Pi to create a Twitter bot, so you can control your Twitter account from your Raspberry Pi. You will need a Raspberry Pi with Wi-Fi. Here are some frequently asked questions on Raspberry Pi. So the first one is, how is Raspberry Pi used in IoT? The answer is, it provides a platform to develop many IoT projects at a very low cost and high portability. What is the language used by Raspberry Pi? So Python is the official language that comes preloaded in the Raspberry Pi. Can Raspberry Pi be used as a server? Yes, it can be used as a server just like any other computer. What OS can run on Raspberry Pi? There are several operating systems that you can run on Raspberry Pi. For example, Ubuntu Mate, Snappy, Ubuntu Core, the Raspbian OS, and the Windows 10 IoT Core. The last one is Raspberry Pi illegal? Yes, it is very legal and used in many IoT projects. Thank you for listening.